you've probably noticed that I'm not publishing as much on YouTube anymore. And I don't want you to worry, I'm still around. What I'm actually doing though is focusing on bringing value to our mastermind group. Our mastermind is not only free to join, every week I'm going live with free lectures and tutorials, and it's all based on subjects that you all want to learn about. Now for me, this is far more rewarding because it's a place where I get to actually interact with you and develop a relationship as opposed to just throwing out more and more content on YouTube. This video though is an example of one of our free live weekly lectures. So I'd love to see you inside the mastermind. I'll post the link in the description of this video, but meantime, enjoy the lesson. We're here for the creative power of advanced AI masking in Lightroom Classic. And the reason why I really like this topic and I wanted to cover this topic is because I tend to find that we often jump into Photoshop too soon, okay? And there's so much creative potential that we have just inside of Lightroom and just with Lightroom's masking tools and with the new AI masking tools. So that's what I want to cover specifically today in this lecture. If you are new to the mastermind, or if you're watching this and maybe for some reason you're not yet in the mastermind, I want you to join it. It's completely free to join. We do weekly lives. There's how-to guides. There's free tutorials, support, guidance. It is literally the best, most positive place to learn and the most valuable mastermind for wedding and portrait photographers who are serious about learning and kind of building their business and all of that jazz. Feel free also to share or invite friends. We want to make this just an amazing community for all of us. It's kind of because, each of us are solopreneurs, or at least most of us are, right? We're kind of doing this business on our own, or we're photographers on our own. Maybe our spouse is joining with us. This group kind of creates that water cooler, that place where we can all gather and have conversations and lend each other support that we would normally have, like say at a corporate workplace, but we don't get that because we're kind of on our own. So anyway, join the group. If you are new to the group, I would suggest you start with the guides. Each of the weekly lectures, everything that we do, we're saving out to the group and they go into the guides. So the guides has a beautiful place just with all of the resources. And probably the best place to start is actually how to maximize your experience inside of the group. So we have a lecture on that specifically. So the kind of pain points, the topics that I want to address is like, well, why do I need to learn Lightroom Classic masking? There's so much creative potential there, and I think a lot of us don't even realize the power of it. So I want to cover that. We're going to talk about how it works, like how masking works. We're going to talk about specifically masking fundamentals and then AI masking fundamentals. We're going to talk about controlling and adjusting masks, making advanced AI mask selections, as well as just show you guys some kind of creative possibilities. We'll even be going to creating AI masking presets, and I'm going to give you guys a few presets along the way as well, so you guys can save those out and walk away with some really cool workflow presets that are going to, make your images awesome. So let's dive straight into this. I wanted to talk about step 1, masking fundamentals. And this is one of those lectures where I'll make these slides available to you guys afterwards. So I'll get all this over to our team so we can kind of create a page for all this so you guys can have these slides and not have to worry about kind of keeping up with note taking and whatnot. Okay, so masking fundamentals. Let's go through the basics first. I want to talk the slides and I'm going to actually demonstrate what we're going to do, okay? The first thing I want to do is like kind of differentiate between AI masks. Those are the new functions, as well as the existing masks. We also have things like color, luminance, and depth masking. And we're going to give you the basic kind of, white reveals, black conceals concept, okay? So let's do this. Let's go through masking fundamentals and talk about what that really is. Probably the quickest way to get over to the masking menu is actually with the shortcut Shift-W, okay? I gave you guys in the slides, you'll see a list of kind of my most used shortcuts, but this is your masking menu right here. At the top, we have the AI masks. So these are going to select out your subject, your sky, and your background using AI automatically. Then we have manual mask below that. So manual mask, we have the brush, linear gradient, radial gradient, and then we have range masks. Okay, so brush, we're going to paint over things, manually. Linear gradient, we're going to drag over things. Radial is going to be a circle. I'm going to demonstrate each of these as we kind of go through. Range masks, these are going to select a range of, say, color, a range of luminance, or a range of depth, if it can detect it, okay? So those are our different, basically, masking options. And what each of these are doing, it really doesn't matter which ones we select, right? I'm going to go ahead and press K. So I'm going to select just a brush mask. And I can paint this on. And I was saying white reveals and black conceals, right? And you're like, well, that's kind of weird because when I paint on, it's red. This is the overlay that it's displaying. The actual mask, it's showing the actual mask, but you can see the actual mask up in the top right. You can see over here on the menu where it shows like the white over the black, right? So anything that's showing as black over in this little thumbnail is going to be concealed. Anything that's showing as white is going to be revealed. Over in the overlay, it's whatever is red, right? So when we say a local adjustment, what we're really saying is adjustments that are localized over a selection. And what we have is basically not every single develop menu option, but we have a lot of options available to us, most options available to us right here in this panel. So anything that I do right here is going to affect only the selected area of the image. And I have a lot of control. I can add contrast, I can add shadows. None of these things would I actually do. So let me actually do something that I might actually do, right? I'm going to use, say, an AI selection to select the sky. So now it's only selecting the sky. Again, when you look in the thumbnail, it's black conceals, white reveals, right? So white is what's going to be affected. And I can go to the sky and I can say, well, I want to pull down the sky exposure a bit. I want to bring my highlights back. I do like some bit of whites in there. So I'm going to raise the whites a little bit. I'm also going to add maybe a little bit more warmth to this and maybe even a little bit more saturation and kind of really give it some oomph. Now, if I click the eyeball and turn this on or off, you see exactly what that mask is doing. So this is the power of masks. It's basically being able to bring global adjustments and making them localized, okay? So what I'm really saying is if I go ahead and just reset this out for a moment, if we go back to the develop panel, these are all global adjustments, right? So global adjustments is anything that I make, any adjustments that I make over here are applied to the image as a whole. And when I say local adjustments, that means that we're going into a mask and we're making those adjustments with a selection. So it's only affecting the selected area, okay? Hopefully that all kind of makes sense. These are just some basic fundamentals that I want to cover in case you are completely new to this. And don't worry, we're going to go layer by layer and just keep diving deeper into this as we go. So let's go back to our side-by-side view for a second and go back to those slides. So this is what these first few slides are going to remind you of. You have the manual options, brush, linear, radial. You have the range options, which are going to be based on color, luminance, and depth. And you have AI options, subject, sky, and background, and white reveals, black conceals. These are the adjustments that you have available to you. And these are some of my favorite masking shortcuts. Again, don't stress about like screen capturing, about furiously writing notes or whatever. I'm going to make these available to you as a downloadable, so you guys have those slides. I put kind of my most used ones at the top, and there's obviously more than this, but these are the ones that I'm kind of typically jumping to most often. Let me just do a quick demonstration of a few of these, especially the overlays and like the inverting of masks. Okay, so one of the important ways that you have of controlling your mask. Well, let's first talk about like viewing. So we're over here. We can see that I've pressed Shift W. I'm in the masking menu, and I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that I see my masks, right? From this place, if you press T, you'll actually bring up your toolbar specifically for your masks. And from this view, you have additional options. So sometimes you guys, sometimes like when you guys are painting with brushes, like for example, I'm going to go ahead and use a brush. I'm going to paint over an area just so you can see these different areas that I've painted in this mask, right? I'm going to create a new mask. We'll go a new brush mask and do it again. Okay, so we're layering masks right now. I just want to see this as a little demonstration. You'll notice that when we have that, you have these little pins that are left, okay? Those pins allow you to quickly identify like where a mask might be, and you can select those pins. There's a couple things that sometimes happen. Sometimes we accidentally hide the pins and we don't realize, and you hide the pins by pressing H. So sometimes you might press H and not realize that you've hidden the pins. And so one of the questions we get is like, I have masks, but I can't find them. I can't see the pins. It's because you've accidentally toggled them off. So H will toggle the pins off, and then H again will toggle the pins back on. You can also have the show edit pins option as auto, selected, never, so you can leave these in different modes, and you can choose different overlay modes as well. So if I want to see the color overlay over, say, just black and white, I can actually choose that as my color overlay mode. And when I click show overlay, that's what it's going to display, is that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave it on color overlay. You can also show white on black. You can show image on white. These are all different options for your color overlay, and this will actually show you like the full mask, basically. Okay. The shortcut to do this, to white over black, is generally just the Alt Option shortcut, and I don't know why it's not, working. Sometimes I feel like Lightroom gaslights me. Like, I know something should be the way that I know it, and it's a bug. And so Lightroom gaslights me because it's a bug, and I'm like, is it not this way? I swear it's been this way. I'll close it and I'll reopen it, and suddenly it works again. Sometimes I'm just losing my mind and I'm crazy and I don't remember it at all. Anyway, we'll never know. I'm going to go ahead and do this. From the masking menu, I'm going to select all three of these and just delete them. I know, Catherine's like, Lightroom gaslighting, it's a thing, okay? If you've been here a while in Lightroom, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, let's go back to our side-by-side view for just a second. So these are the kind of masking fundamentals. Hopefully that all makes sense. This is just step one I wanted to cover here. Let's start going into AI masking fundamentals now. So this is kind of step 2. Let's level up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to select a different image. And what I wanted to show here is subject, sky, background, which we've done a little bit of, but I also want to show you kind of advanced options of adding and subtracting to those AI masks, which can be a little bit confusing at first. Okay, so let's kind of dive into this just a bit more. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and select the sky for this. I'm going to give you a couple other options here. So this is just a different image. Notice that everything is reset over this, so we don't have any adjustments. I'll press Shift W. We'll go ahead and select sky, and it goes ahead and it shows us the sky mask, right? So with this selected, I can do several different things to actually modify this mask. The first, and I think the most important, is to show you how to invert a mask, okay? Press apostrophe to invert your mask, and it's going to reverse the selection. So you'll see right here in the mask that it actually flips. It goes, white goes to black, black goes to white. And this is very powerful. I'm going to show you why as we kind of go through this. But that's the first kind of shortcut that I would remember. Apostrophe, is it apostrophe? I think that's the name of it. The apostrophe will invert your mask, okay? The second piece of this is being able to add and subtract. So think of it this way. If you add to your mask, you're going to select more areas of white, okay? You're going to basically add more white, making more selections of things that you want to affect. If you subtract from the mask, you want to be removing things that you don't want to affect. So you're going to be basically painting black in. But we have layers of how we can go about doing this. And that's what makes this so cool, right? Because if I click add, I can add to the mask using the exact same set of features. Or I can also subtract from the mask using the exact same set of features. And this makes it very powerful because I can go, all right, so I've selected this sky right now. But what if I don't want to select the brightest area of the sky for some reason, right? Then what I'm going to do is go to luminance range. So I'm at subtract luminance range, and I'm going to drag this up. And if you hold down Alt or Option, you can actually feather this, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm telling Lightroom, hey, I actually don't want to select the brightest parts of this image, and it removes them from the mask. Now, the only thing is, if you're talking about a sky, the whole thing is kind of bright, right? So I actually kind of deselected everything. So if I hold down Alt or Option, I can pull that mask back and eventually get to see more of it, okay? And I'm going to click Luminance, Show Luminance Map, so you can kind of see what's happening. So as I drag up, these are the areas of selection that are currently being selected, right? So up here, I'm only selecting essentially the brightest areas. So look at what's happening. It's painting black into the brightest areas of the image and leaving the white in the other areas. This isn't a case that I would use specifically for this, right? But there are cases that I would use this a lot. And so let me kind of give you a demonstration of one. So let's say that I select the background in an image, okay? It chooses the entire background. But let's say, what if I wanted everything except in this case, it's doing a good job of selecting the sky versus the ground, but sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so let's say that it selects certain objects that I don't want selected. I can go to subtract, and I can actually just choose, well, I want to actually subtract the sky from this. And so I'll do select sky, right? And it subtracts the sky. Now I've got the entire foreground selected without the sky. And this is kind of cool because I can have now control over like where I want that foreground to be in terms of depth. And that's not an option that we get in the menu, right? Because when I look at the menu, look at the masking menu options, right? Oops. Okay. Create a new mask. I don't have the option to select like foreground. That's not in there. Or basically to select everything that's not sky. That's not one of the options. I can select my subject, I can select my sky, I can select my background, or I can select people. But if I want to just select only the background area that is not sky, that is not an option. So I can create that as an option by just simply adding these two masks together. Does that make sense? So just again, to kind of reiterate and just show that one more time, what I would do in this case is I'd select the background, and then I would say simply subtract the sky from this selection, and now I have just the background of the image that is not sky. And that's kind of cool. I'm going to show you why that's kind of cool. Because what if I want to create something that's a bit more like moody and rustic? In fact, let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and go down to the mood pack. I'm going to apply a look. I'm going to apply a preset just so we have something there to kind of look at, right? You can use anything that you'd like. I'm going to choose from kind of the visual flow presets to give us a baseline look. I'm going to select the background now, and watch. I'm going to select remove sky, okay? And let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to bring the exposure down now and bring the black point, actually not the black point, bring the shadow point up and just keep lowering exposure. So what I'm going to do is kind of leave this area dark, right? Now watch, I'm going to go ahead and go sky, and this time I'm going to kind of darken, but I'm also going to add some more warmth to it, okay? And now check this out. I'm going to go ahead and add my subjects, and I'm going to do a little bit of a dodge. So I'm just going to lift them up a little bit with a tiny bit of brightening. And look at what happens to this. I mean, it looks, I don't want to go too far because it's going to look like I've kind of photoshopped them, right? But what I've just done with only masks is created this dark and moody vibe with the image. And look at this. If I was to turn this all off, click the eyeball to turn this off, look at the difference that this makes. That's kind of wild, right? So that gives us a lot more control over these AI masks, the ability to be able to add and subtract to them. And what's cool is you can actually, as long as you're using those AI-based functions to add and remove, you can save them into a preset and it's going to store. Those are the fundamentals I wanted to cover in terms of adding and subtracting. Now let's go into this piece. And I think I might have, there's another layer beyond just adding and subtracting for advanced selection. Okay, so step 3 is going to be even more advanced AI masking selections. And I have an image here selected for specifically so I can show limitations. So there are going to be certain limitations when it comes to these AI masking tools. And the main one is just when Lightroom just doesn't detect what's happening, right? And as the AI improves, this should get better. But for this example image, if I select sky, it usually is going to do a good job of selecting out the sky, right? But if I go ahead and I select subject, watch this. It actually lumps in. It doesn't select just the couple. It selects the couple along with the rock plus some of the beach because Lightroom's having a hard time detecting what's happening here. So anytime we're working in an image that's a little bit difficult for Lightroom to detect, you're going to run into those types of issues. Whenever you have a fringing issue, so like a fringing issue is usually like where you get a halo edge against something, right? My favorite way to fix that is with a brush tool. So you're going to use just a brush tool. So say, for example, we're on a mask, and you can use this for that hair issue that you kind of are discovering, right? What you can do is go into the mask, and there's a couple ways to adjust this too. One is if you have a fringing issue, the number one thing that I usually do is just back off on the effect that you're dialing in. Like you've gone too heavy on the adjustment, and so that fringing thing becomes more noticeable, right? The other thing too, though, is to actually feather and paint off the edge. So watch this. I'm going to go to subtract. So I'm going to remove from the selection. I'm going to use a brush, and what you want to do is increase the size of the brush so you have a large feathered edge. And then you're going to turn on auto mask, okay? And what I'm going to do is paint along the edge of this. And what you'll see is Lightroom is kind of sampling from this area of color, and it's using it to kind of paint back where this line should have basically been, right? So this is my favorite area to kind of refine, or my favorite way to refine a selection and to paint it off to get rid of hair halos or those issues that you have with like, hair and flyaways and things like that. But those are a little bit the limitations that we have inside of Lightroom's masking. Okay. Someone mentioned I spend a lot of time brushing on masks to correct for transition lenses. Is there a way to make an AI mask for this? Maybe in the group you can post some examples of that and I'll see, because I don't know specifically like the transition lenses, what that's creating in terms of an artifact. But post some examples and I'll see if I can get to that. Do you ever zoom in to correct or improve the edges of the mask? Yes, and if I need to, I will, using that technique that I just showed. Using the feathered edge with auto mask turned on, that's the best way to kind of correct masks. Okay, let's go back here and let's jump into this next layer, because as much as we've already covered right now, there's more layers to advanced masking. And so what we're going to do is you actually have options for advanced masking selection, specifically when it comes to people. To find these, here's what you're going to do. This is a little bit tricky, okay? So in my advanced selections little thing here, over here I selected an image. All you need is an image with multiple people in it, okay? It doesn't matter what image, it doesn't matter how many, it just needs, I believe, at least 2 kind of facing the camera or more should be enough. But from the masking menu, so let's press Shift-W, get back into this menu. What I want to show you is this. As soon as it detects more than one person, you get a different set of options. And what I want you to notice first is the all people. Usually we're not going to create presets around specific people, although you can make individual adjustments based on specific people, right? So you'll notice that as I'm hovering over these, it's selecting a different person there. But usually when I'm making a preset, I'm going to choose all people. When I choose that, I get an advanced people menu with more options where I can select the entire person. I can select just facial skin, just body skin, eyebrows, iris and pupil, lips, hair, or a combination of all these, or clothing, by the way. So if I go, I want to affect face and body skin because maybe I want to do a dodging preset that lifts highlights on skin tones. This is how I do it. I'd select face and body skin, create masks, and now that's automatically selected. So watch this. If we're looking at this mask, right? And again, I'm holding down Alter Option and I swear, it won't just show me the people. You know what? Let's flip to this. White on black. There we go. So it will if I just click that option. So that's the actual mask that's been applied, right? Now let's go ahead and just go back to the regular view of this. And what I'm going to do is this. Let's just, again, apply a basic look to this preset. And what I'm going to do is actually darken everything down. So I'm actually going to, not darken on the mask. I want to globally darken everything down. Make it a bit more moody, okay? And then what I'm going to do is go back to the masking menu, and I'm going to raise the highlights a little bit, okay? Raise the white point a little bit. Maybe even a tiny bit of exposure. And what happens is, just the skin tones get lifted out. I've just created a quick dodging mask that lifts out my faces. And look at this. If I turn this on and off, look at how big of a difference that makes. Isn't that kind of crazy? I'm hoping you guys are like, like this is blowing my mind that I can do this, because the next step of this is, hey, you can actually save these into presets, into your workflow. And I'm going to show you that in a second. But that's a really cool function. And we have that through that advanced people selection menu. And again, the way that you get there is if I clear this out, I'm going to go ahead and right click, delete all masks. The way that you get there, have an image with more than one person. And this is why I'm going to go ahead and just prove this to you, right? If you select the wrong image, or if you select an image where either it can't detect there's more than one person, or if there's only one person, you don't get that menu. Okay. So you get person 1. I needed to show all people. And that's why we don't realize that menu exists, because we go person 1 and then it goes entire person. And now we're making masking selections over one person only. So it's only going to work when it detects this person in an image, and we lose the functionality of it. Okay. So select an image with multiple people, and then you can get that all people option, and then you get the advanced selections for people. All right. So let's do this. Someone asked the question, and Richard said, that's super cool. I'm glad you dig it, man. How could you improve on the masking so the chair is not part of the skin masking? Yeah, there's going to be limitations to it, right? So let's go ahead and go back to that advanced masking option. If there's chairs that are falling into skin tones, then it could potentially select some of those as kind of an error, right? What I would say is this: design your preset to work over most images. When you apply something like that, let's say we go facial and body scan, we go create mask. Okay, let's see how much of the chairs are actually being selected. So if I look at this one and I flip this over to white on black, then we see that there's a little bit of chair here, a little bit of chair here. There's a little bit, right? If we notice it as an issue, then I'm going to say just paint it off. So go ahead and select the mask, and you're going to go subtract and with brush, okay? And you're just going to paint it off. So that's how I would refine the selection if you need to. Usually if your adjustments are kind of subtle though, like if I'm just adding a bit of highlights to this, if I'm just adding a bit of whites and maybe a tiny bit of exposure, you don't really notice it, do you? Like as long as those adjustments are subtle, you don't notice it. Now when those adjustments get over the top, not only is it too much on the people, but then it starts becoming far more noticeable on like other objects there. So generally that's the way that I'm looking to refine. First, I want to keep the adjustments subtle. So that way, if there is a little bit of an error in the selection, it's not really noticeable. And second, if I need to make an adjustment, I can add or subtract to the mask on a manual basis. Okay, so hopefully we got that covered. Let's go to step 4. So now let's take everything we've learned, start creating an AI preset. I want to give you guys some cool, fun presets to kind of walk away with, okay? So the first thing I want to do is this one. This is a blooming highlights preset, and I want to give you some ideas of how these presets can kind of function. You already saw that quick dodge one, right? Let's select the right image first. So what do I mean by blooming highlights? One of my favorite things to use is what is it? A pro mist. So a pro mist filter over a lens. I use a quarter pro mist oftentimes. What it does is it softens highlights. It kind of creates a soft blooming effect. And a full mist, like a full one, I don't know if it's a one stop, but like a full half or a full pro mist, they're very heavy. And so I tend to go with like a quarter pro mist, okay? But sometimes I don't want to use a pro mist because I'm working with different sets of lenses. And so I actually want to create the effect afterwards. So this is kind of, the blooming highlights is kind of designed to emulate a bit of a pro mist effect. So what we're going to do right now is let's go ahead and just apply a basic look, and we've stuck to the mood pack. So I'm going to just do mood pack again. It doesn't matter what look you want to apply, anything works. What I'm going to do is go back into my masking menu. Okay. Shift W again to get there, or you can just click the masking menu at the top right. This go around, let's not use the AI based ones. Let's actually use the luminance range. So what I'm going to do is select luminance range, and I'm not going to worry too much about the selection yet. What I'm going to do is go ahead and hold down Alter Option, and it's holding down Alter Option that will actually give you the feather range. So I'm going to click right here. So you'll notice that the low point stays low, and then I'm feathering the selection now up to a point where I'm getting to primarily just these bright highlights. Okay. And we'll do some more control of this in just a minute. In fact, I might even leave this down here as I'm making these adjustments so you guys can see what's happening a little bit. Now, I gave you guys over here on this, let's go back to the slides for just a second. There's a kind of a little shortcut of how to do this right here. I'm just going to dial this in based on this image. And if you're creating a preset with this, I'd test this a little bit. But what you generally want to do is I want the highlights to kind of bloom a little bit, but without getting so bright that they go white. Okay, so I'm going to reduce the whites, but leave the highlights up a little bit. Okay, and I'm just going to make approximations to this. The next thing that I want to do is I kind of want the texture of the highlights to kind of be softened. So I'm actually going to soften the texture of the highlights, including the clarity. Okay. Now notice that it's actually affecting almost everything on the image right now because of the selection, right? If I look at this mask right now, it's selecting almost everything. That's okay. I'm also going to add in a bit of dehaze. You can control this to whatever degree you kind of want. So you want a more heavy effect, that's fine. I'm giving you guys a starting place to play with this. This is where I want you to come back to the feather. You're going to control the top end of the feather and make sure it's only applying over the brightest highlights. And usually I find that's right around 90 to 100. Then you're going to pull up on the base of the feather and make sure it's not applying over areas of skin tone. So we're going to bring this up to about 60-ish. Now what we have, if you look at this, is that most of this selection, and if I want to, I can even hold, let's see if so if I hold down Alter Option on this, it will actually show me my adjustments. But look at this. as I hold Alt or Option, it's showing the mask and what's actually being affected. So one of the little shortcuts I gave you guys is holding down Alt or Option and dragging and pushing buttons inside of Lightroom will often give you a little secret kind of settings that you wouldn't otherwise know about. So I'm going to leave this about right here where it's not selecting any of the shirt or any of the shadows in the face, just the highlight areas. And watch what's happening. If I turn this on and off, do you see that blooming effect that we get? Isn't that beautiful? It's such a nice way of kind of making the highlights smoother and kind of blending. See how the flare is pretty harsh. The transition of the flare to the highlight is pretty harsh when coming straight out of the camera, right? But this blooming effect softens that transition. And boom, we get this beautiful look. Okay? I love the way it affects hair. It affects everything. It just kind of creates this softening vibe. If I zoom in, look at this. If I zoom in over these highlights, look at what it's doing to the flyaways. See how it's softening them up and kind of making them almost part of the aesthetic of the image? Isn't that kind of cool? Is that cool though? Now, once you have this all dialed in, let's not forget, save this out as a preset. So look, what I'm going to do is go to my masking menu. And I'm going to choose, for this mask, I'm going to rename it to Blooming. Oh, let's go right here. Okay, let me move that in the center. I'm just renaming it to Blooming Highlight. Okay, now with that renamed, I'm going to save it as a preset. So you're going to go to the plus, go create preset. And for all of the development, like whenever I have presets under development for visual flow presets, I have this folder. So I'm going to save it to that folder. You can put them wherever you want, right? You want to create a new group, you can do that. But I'm going to put it here. And I'm going to call this Blooming Highlights. And usually if something for me is untested, I'll write untested. So that way I can kind of like document as something gets more and more tested and refined, okay? I'm going to go check none and then press masking Blooming Highlight. Now, do you see here why I renamed that layer? I renamed it because if you don't rename it, when you go to the masking menu, when you see it here in the presets, it's just going to show a list of masks and you don't know what's what. So if I name those layers, then I actually know which ones I want to select for my preset, and it makes it very easy to also adjust. All right. So here I'm going to go create. And now under my dev folder, I have Blooming Highlights untested. And so check this out. I can go ahead and just delete this now. And now it's automatically done. I just click Blooming Highlights and boom, there's our Blooming Highlights right on the image. We have a pro mist that we've created in the edit. Is that kind of cool? So, oh, thank you. Thank you. You guys saw my desperation and you're responding. Absolutely cool stuff. Catherine says, must rewatch to get my head all around this. Fortunately, my friend, you guys have all of it. So we got our Blooming Highlight and we've covered how to save it. So this is what I kind of placed right there. Name the masking layer, add it to your presets, press check none, and then just choose the desired mask. So all of your shortcuts for everything is kind of right here. Now, I'm going to give you a couple more just as a little bonus, okay? So I'm going to go to the grid view so I can see our other options here. I'm going to select out a different image. Okay. So on this image, again, my typical workflow is just starting with a baseline look. I'm going to go ahead and just select mood again, and I'm going to do some basic adjustments here, right? Let's kind of put a few of these things together now. Let's say that I want to kind of create images that are a bit more moody and deep and dark. So what I'm going to do is actually darken down this image a bit, right? So what I'm going to do is actually lower down the exposure so it's nice and dark, and I'm going to actually reduce some contrast as well, okay? I'm giving myself this like dark sort of starting point for this. Now, I'm going to, just to save us a little bit of time, I'm actually going to give you these presets straight from the retouching toolkit. So if you guys are Visual Flow users, then you have the retouching toolkit. The AI retouching toolkit is what I'm drawing from. If you are not, let me go ahead and just pull up real quick where it is. So if there is any interest in this, you guys can find it right here. So if you go to the Visual Flow website at vfpresets.com, the AI retouching tools, this is what we're going to be pulling from right now. And this is where you can learn more or purchase this whole set. But guess what? I'm going to give you some of these right now. So let's just go into it and you guys can get a little idea. So under the AI retouching toolkit, we have these one and done, which are like a combination of all these tested effects, right? What I'm going to do is actually go down to specifics. So I want to give you guys this dodge subject and dodge skin only presets. So I'm going to select dodge skin only. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into the menu. And what do you see here? You see that exact selection that I taught you guys how to make earlier. And if you need to review it, go back. It's where we choose an image with multiple people. You select all people, and then you choose face and skin. So what automatically happened now was it chose face and skin. So it's body and facial skin. And then these are the adjustments made. So this is what you're going to save out. So you're going to go 20 to highlights, 10 to whites. And there's a little bit of a clarity adjustment here, but for the most part, it's just that simple. It's a very chilled out kind of effect. And with this, you can have a slider that dials in the intensity. Okay. So once you have that, go ahead and save it out. And there's also a little bit of reduction in contrast, by the way, because as you're adding highlights, you need to reduce contrast as part of the process. So in creating these, there has to be a lot of testing to figure out, okay, what is the exact amounts and making sure like, okay, we get it right. So that way you can dial it up and down. But isn't that freaking cool? Like look at the way that her skin tones just get lifted out. Now this is just a quick dodge and burn of just skin tone, right? What if I wanted also the body? So what I'm going to do is actually select dodge subject. And what this does is selects the full body, okay? And this is a similar adjustment, but it's going to be a little bit different. So this one is adding a little bit of exposure, reducing a bit of contrast, adding some highlights, reducing whites, and then I don't think there's anything else being done here, okay? So I can mix and match these effects. So watch this. If I go quick dodge and burn full body, I can bring this up and say, I want more brightness here over the full body. And then just for the skin, I want to dial this one back a little bit right here. And I can tweak those amounts without even having to worry about like diving into this, right? Now, my favorite way to finish things off is this. So like whenever I want to, this is not correcting like lines is not my favorite way to finish things off. That's my OCD. That's literally just because it drives me nuts. Anyway, my favorite way to finish things off is going back to a radial burn. So all I'm going to do is add a radial burn. I'm going to press Shift M to bring up my layers, and then I'm going to bring it right over my subject. And that's how I like to finish off an image to kind of pull the attention in. So let's take a look at each of these, right? The radial burn is just a 0.5 burn. We have the quick dodge and burn for the full body. These are the settings. Quick dodge and burn for skin only. And if you want to save any of these, again, go back to that preset menu, hit create preset. And now you see why we're saving those names. Because now with the name layer, as you apply it, you're going to know exactly what it's doing. And also as you save them, you can save presets for these specific functions. So there you go. These are some of my most used presets, most used AI presets is the dodge and burn for the full body, dodge and burn for skin only, and mask. And it's really, you can think of this dodge and burn as really more of a dodge, but it kind of also has a burn effect with it too, because to get this to work, we have to darken down the overall image. So what we're doing is kind of breaking out the dodge and the burn into two steps. We're burning down the entire image and then just dodging the highlight layers to kind of bring them up. And that creates a very natural look that we want to go for. Richard said, can I batch dodge skin? Yes. So remember, the way that we are choosing our masks, right? And this is the power of this that's a great question. So let me go ahead and pull this up and remove the comment. So if I select multiple images right now, I'll go ahead and reset out this image, or let me just create a copy and then we'll reset this out. Okay, so I'm going to just create a virtual copy. We'll reset this out. And I'm just going to create multiple images or select multiple images. And we're going to go over here. And with any of these that we've created, right? Like I can use any of the AI presets that we have in the pack. You can use any of the ones you've created. But if I select blooming highlights, or let's do this one. Let's do the dodge subjects only, right? If I select this, it's actually applying it to all the images that I have selected. This is the power of these AI presets, is that now from a workflow standpoint, if I go to this image, it actually applied the exact same preset to this. And it's selecting based on this specific image. Same with this image, right? It's selecting based on this specific image. So by building your presets this way, you build a library of presets that can be applied over an entire group of images. So from a workflow standpoint, this is huge. We're not having to go in, and this is where, again, you want to test these presets if you're going to do them on your own. If you want to get into something that's already tested and ready to go, that's where we have the retouching toolkit, which personally, like anytime I can spend $100 or whatever it is to save tons of hours, I'm all about that. But if you're not there, I get it. You can create these on your own, but just test them. And you should spend a good amount of time testing them so that you make sure that they work. They're subtle enough that they don't change an image too much, but they're also impactful enough that they make a difference. Okay. And that's a fine line that has to be tested. So the last thing I want to show is the power of basically putting these together. And again, I'm going to use the retouching toolkit, but this is to give you guys an idea of what you can do for yourselves, right? So I'm giving you this example because I want you to see how far you can take this. So let's go ahead and select, I'm going to select this image. So what I'm going to do on this is my typical workflow is I'm going to select a preset that I like, and I might go like with mood hard light here just to kind of lift out a little bit more of the tones of this image. Now what I'm going to do now is select this. So this is a layered set of adjustments, right? So what's going to happen? I'm going to click retouch with pop and enhance. This is going to apply multiple adjustment layers. And I'm going to bring this up and down. So you'll see that I've created different effects, like the plus versus plus plus. This is something you guys can incorporate in your own presets as you're designing them, right? Plus means that it's going to level up the effect. Plus plus goes even further. So I'm going to leave this at like the top end. But what I want to show you here is this. I'm going to actually go back one. Look at everything that's being added. So what this is a preset with multiple masking layers. See, if I go to this preset, it's got sharpening, enhancing, whitening teeth, lips, hair, iris. Every one of these are tested. Every one of these are dialed in to just be ready to go. And I can apply it, and all of a sudden, boom, what is this? This is like 15 different adjustment layers are added in one go. So what just happened? If you look at this image versus this image, it was literally 2 clicks. Now to finish this, I might just brighten up the exposure a little bit. Okay. And why don't we do this? I'm going to select both these images so I get to the right exposure on both. And then with both of them selected, I'm also going to add in one final effect. Just that radial burn. So all I'm doing is that radial burn, placing it right over my subject. This is just a half stop burn again. And look at the difference here. The difference between these two images is click number 1, I added a look. For this one, I chose mood again. And click number 2 was a stacked set of AI-based layer adjustments. And it automatically detected everything. And look at the difference. This is how we do what we do. If you ever wonder, like our photographers, that are doing this, are they spending all their time editing? No, we're not. We're figuring out ways that we can use AI and all these different tools to our advantage, and to be able to go from 0 to 100 in a click, 2 clicks. Okay. So that's gives you an idea here. And I'm going to give you one more. Let's go ahead and move over here. Just for the sake of it, we'll select and this is one of the images from the challenge that I shot with f-stoppers up in Puerto Rico. This is one of the images from that. So just for the heck of it, let's go ahead and choose modern pack on this one. And I'm going to brighten this up a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I want to show you a different set. So look, if you want, create another set. So if I look up here in the one and done, these portrait retouches, these are just for skin tone, just for eyes, just for all that. So if I select one of these, it's adding this set of effects. So sharpen subject, enhance clothing, whiten teeth, enhance lips, all of that. And I can take this up and down and see like what level I want to keep this. Maybe I want to go right there. You can make ones for just the background. So pop and enhance, it darkens the background and it lifts out the subjects, right? So if I click this, so look at this. So I can, at any point, I can go back to portrait retouch and dial that back a little bit. And I can say, you know what, I want that back to be more impactful. And that's how we get to those looks very quickly. So again, I usually like to back it off just a little bit. So, but I want you guys to see this. So look, this is the raw file, right? We're going to correct the horizon. I want you to see this one more time. Choose a baseline look. From here, all I'm doing is I'm adding a layer of portrait retouch, and then I'm adding a pop and enhance. That's it. And again, I would follow the same thing. I would bring in like a radial burn, kind of choose to bring this over my subject, and I'll adjust both these. I'll adjust this just to get the exposure to kind of like where I like it, right? But that's how we would get to a look like that very quickly, very easily. And all that's happening is we've just take some time. Take some time as you're exploring these different AI-based tools. Take some time and start going, okay, I'm going to make a I'm going to make a look to darken my sky. I'm going to make a look to brighten my foreground, darken my foreground. All these different steps that you're doing, use these AI masking options to create those as presets and then start layering them together to create your own effects. Or, as always, you guys can always jump into our stuff too, but I want you guys to be able to have the tools to be able to do this. Richard says, I swear I almost want to cry. I had no idea these were so awesome. It becomes it's so much easier, right, Richard, when we understand like what these tools can do as we're shooting. Like when I'm shooting with Patrick, I knew exactly what I was going to do in post. I'm like, okay, I can shoot this natural light. He was like, aren't you going to use flash or anything? I'm like, no, I know when I want to use flash, and here I don't need to. So I'm going to just shoot this natural light, and I as long as I have the right exposure, I can get to exactly where I want to go with a click or two in the edit and have a very nice natural aesthetic for it as well. Okay, let's go back to our side-by-side. Let's make sure we kind of covered everything. Okay, so we got that. Again, I showed you guys the link. If you guys want to learn more about the retouching toolkit, you can. And okay, so if you are at this place where you're like, all right, I dig this. This is, by the way, how we do all of our education and stuff. So if you guys like the education that you guys see inside of the group, then you're going to love our premium education as well as our coaching group. If it's cool with you all, I would love to just share with you what that looks like. So if you guys feel like this was valuable, if you feel like you learned something, let me know in the comments. Give me permission to kind of go into this next step. But I want to show you kind of what that next step looks like. Okay, so we have two options in terms of pathways. We have SR Lounge Premium. We just call it shorthand Premium. You can get to it at srloungeworkshops.com. This is basically a bundle of master level workshops that go from literally picking up the camera to everything advanced, including like learning off-camera lighting, learning editing, like all the stuff that we've done here, composition, mastering your camera, posing techniques, engagement photography, family photography, wedding photography. We have an entire training system just for wedding photography. And it also includes a kind of do-it-yourself business training system as well, which is a beautiful program, but it's kind of a self-guided program, right? The second step beyond this. So what I would say is like, this is really 95% of this is tuned, designed for your creative development. So your creative development is what SR Lounge Premium is about. When we step beyond that, we go to the program, and you guys have probably heard us talking about this. We have a lot of students that are currently taking this in the Mastermind. It's 10K for 2K. What this is a $10,000 value mastermind and mentorship program that's being offered for $2,000. And right now there's actually offers, special offers on it that bring it a little bit lower than that as well. But you can get to that through this link. So I think it'd probably be easiest just to click it from the actual workbook. But it's /12-month mentorship with Pi Jirsa. And this is a step-by-step roadmap. It's weekly coaching. So every single week we hop on, we go through lecture material, and then we go through open coaching time. It's a done with you experience with accountability, guidance, everything like that. So these are basically the two kind of next level programs that we have when each of you are ready for these stages. And right now we still actually are offering 10K for 2K along with Premium. So anybody that has a lifetime membership to Premium can get 10K for 2K still for half off basically. So that means that you can get both for $2,000. So Premium is usually $997. The 10K for 2K is usually $2K. Right now, if you get a lifetime premium membership, just email us and say, I'd like to join 10K for 2K. We'll send you a special link that gets you 50% off, which means that you get both these programs for under $2,000. Again, this mastermind here is here for each of you. So if you guys have ideas, you guys have thoughts, things that you think would be valuable, let me know. I'm here for you all. There is nonstop value going to be coming to you guys each week in the mastermind, along with this incredible community. I'm so proud of each of you in this community we build, like seeing all of you guys help each other and just jump in and engage. It's a real testament to the talent, the creativity in the group, and also just the awesome people. Like everyone, we just have a group of good people. So I appreciate you all. Thank you. And I'll see you in the group and as well as next week.